I knew a long time ago that 5G was dangerous, but I didn't understand the correlation with the coronavirus, which I now do, and I want to be able to explain that to you.
Oh boy, this is going to be good. Because believe it or not, this ain't some niche thing. 5G engineers have been threatened in the UK, and people have been trying to burn down 5G masts because of this. Guys like this are pushing out viral videos with over 500,000 hits, and the audiences love it.
What is happening is that 5G, the frequency and the power, which is 10 times more powerful than 4G, is reacting adversely with human cells, causing cells in our bodies to be poisoned, toxic, and our natural defense mechanism is pushing out that toxicity in the form of a virus.
I'm gonna cut you up so small the worms won't even have to chew.
So what you're seeing is not coronavirus per se, you're seeing cell poisoning manifesting with fluids, chemicals, viruses that the body is trying to dispose of because it's harmful to its physical body.
Oh, sugar, you just gone and done the dumbest thing in your whole life.
You see, you, sir, just made the biggest mistake of all conspiracy theorists. The biggest mistake ever. You, sir, just made a testable claim.
What is happening is that 5G, the frequency and the power, which is 10 times more powerful than 4G, is reacting adversely with human cells.
Cool. So you could demonstrate your hypothesis quite easily. You would just get a cell culture and irradiate it with 5G. As much as you want. Let yourself go. Strap it to the bloody antenna. And if your hypothesis is right, those cells should magically start producing coronavirus. I can save you a little time though. It won't work because 5G doesn't cause viruses, and viruses are not cells detoxifying themselves. And for those saying, oh, I was hoping for something a little more substantial, why do you scientifically kneecap this one at the start?
Are you finished, Mr. Slade?
No, I'm just getting warmed up.
Oh, there is so much more sweet, juicy ownage to come. I mean, let's just take this guy.
I was the head of the largest business unit at Vodafone, their headquarters in Newbury.
No, honestly, really, he's a telecoms engineer, a really high up telecoms engineer. You know, it's one of these odd things. All these conspiracy theory videos start with someone telling you what a great expert they are on the subject.
I have to tell people 5G is a killer. I'm Mark Steele. Anybody who hasn't heard me, I'm a weapons systems head-up display expert. I'm one of the leading experts in the world.
I mean, let me just push extra doubt on this one for the moment. But let's just be generous and say it were true. If I want advice on microbiology or biochemistry or infectious diseases, do you know who I don't consult? Someone who runs a bloody business unit.
I was the head of the largest business unit at Vodafone.
Hell, the only reason I bring it up is, do you know how viruses have been historically detected? You know, in more modern times, when we were doing things like eradicating the smallpox virus that had ravaged mankind for the best part of the last 5,000 years. Oh yes, but of course, viruses are cells detoxifying themselves,
causing cells in our bodies to be poisoned, toxic, and our natural defense mechanism is pushing out that toxicity in the form of a virus.
So when the Egyptians first got smallpox, it must have been because they were installing 5G on their pyramids or something. And isn't it bizarre how all of this smallpox virus cell detoxification stopped miraculously once we worked out how to create a smallpox vaccine? But if you wanted to detect viruses in the 20th century, the way you would do it is you would get a living culture of cells, something that the virus could infect. And then you added your virus-laden solution that you wanted to test the activity of, and then you would leave it for a while and count up the number of places where the virus had infected the cell culture. Now, in more modern times, of course, you can just sequence the viral genome and absolutely prove it. But this is how it was done historically. Now, if Wingers and Dingers here were right that
I was the head of the largest business unit at Vodafone.
5G just causes cells to detoxify themselves with coronavirus, now, if they wanted to demonstrate their hypothesis, all you would have to do is irradiate a cell culture with 5G, and boom, it should start doing something like this. In fact, you wouldn't even have to irradiate it specifically with 5G, because every cell culture in every biochemistry lab around the world should magically start producing coronavirus when they turn on the 5G. And oddly enough, not one person around the world made that observation. Odd that. And of course, if these people were right, then quarantining should have no effect whatsoever. And guess what? All the places where they quarantined early, like South Korea, were magically protected against the virus-causing effects of 5G. It's almost like somehow magically the disease is some contagious thing caused by a self-replicating virus. You know, something that we've known in detail for at least the last 100 years. Now, instead, we get something with the same scientific rigor as saying there was a comet in the sky and a plague. Therefore, comets cause plagues. Or no. God caused plagues by sending eclipses.
How do we determine, how do we say what might be coming? Because we want to prepare people. What might be coming? Well, all we have to do is look at history. History is prophecy. What happened in history when there was a total solar eclipse crossing the entire continental United States nearly 100 years ago?
The end of World War One? Is that the sign that you're talking about? Oh, sorry, I forgot. God only communicates by killing people. You know, signs.
Coronavirus spread all over the world, and it has taken the lives of at least 305 people. Can it really be that the Bible predicted this? We will see in this video that it did. God says that He wants to win the trust of the people so that we can know that we can trust God, that He exists, and that we can trust the Bible as His divinely inspired word.
Well, if you look in history, you can Google this. 1918, there was a flu pandemic. A pandemic is bad. It's not an epidemic, it's a pandemic. The pandemic of 1918 resulted in a death toll of 675,000 Americans dead. The death toll worldwide was 50 to 100 million. I mean, give or take 50 million. That's how bad it was.
So let me see. If I understand this right, God wants to send a sign that He's going to judge America. So He sent a global pandemic to kill 50 to 100 million people, even though only 1% of the dead would be Americans. You know, the people He's trying to communicate with. Meanwhile, 99% of the casualties would be a splatter fire.
So would you say that's a sign that was given to that generation? To say, boy, there's a lot of wickedness here and repent?
Cool. So I'm sure if we take a look at another plague, say for instance the Black Death, I'm sure you'll find that was accompanied by a solar eclipse too. Actually, no. That was just 1/3 of the population of Europe dead without an eclipse. Good thing too. I would hate to see how bad it would have been if God had tried to communicate with these people by sending them a sign at the same time.
Repent or reap what you sow. God doesn't go around killing people. We don't believe that. But God would only need to remove His presence for evil to come into your life.
I'm really not so sure I would call influenza evil. It's a virus. Sure, it kills you, but it's not like it sat there conspiring to do it. You know, oh, if only God will remove His presence, then I can go and kill women and children. Well, God's just sitting there saying, well, yeah, I think I'm going to remove my presence till 50 to 100 million are dead, you know, because that'll teach Him not to do what I want.
That's what we're doing to God. We kick Him out of school. We say you can't even teach the Bible in school. You can see the demonic influence in that.
And there will be famines and pestilences, which are fatal epidemic diseases like the coronavirus, and earthquakes in various places. So 2,000 years ago, Jesus made the prediction that in the time before He would come back, the world would not be free from disease and outbreak.
Wow, such a precise prediction that there will be disease, which is something that's been true every single day for the last 2,000 years.
There shall in that time be rumours of things going astray, and there shall be a great confusion as to where things really are. And nobody will really know where lieth those little things.
Oh, and what was his other wonderfully precise prediction for the end of times? That there'll be earthquakes in various places. Now, that's the precision that I expect from an omnipotent being.
The Wuhan coronavirus is just one of these examples of how we see end-time prophecy like this being fulfilled in front of our very eyes.
Oh, I can see why you're so happy and overjoyed that God's doing something for you. And all it cost was the lives of some 60,000 people. You soulless yachts.
Jesus says, don't fear. These things must happen. They are a sign of what is soon to come. Friends, Jesus is coming back soon.
No, this isn't a parody. This is from a channel called Christian Life, and it's got almost 1 million hits, and his audience loved it. And let's just call it like it is. That's just messed up beyond all recognition. I mean, the 5G causes coronavirus stuff. Okay, they're demonstrably wrong, and they're kind of crazy, and it's kind of funny. But how messed up do you have to be to sit there grinning with a beaming, happy smile from ear to ear because 60,000 people have died? Okay, I might come back to this guy in another video, because he deserves it. Let's get back to something a little more lighthearted. You know, the 5G causes coronavirus stuff. Oh boy, the rabbit hole is deep and the rabbit hole is stupid on this one. Buckle up, Dorothy. Science is coming to Conspiracy Town, and it's going to be carnage. Now, like many rabbit holes, this one starts off with the best internet experts. You know, this one apparently had a viral video with some 200,000 hits on YouTube or Facebook or similar before it was deleted. Got mixed feelings about that one as someone who has been purged from the Google search engine. But anyway, whatever.
And just so you don't think I'm sitting here making stuff up, I'll quickly tell you my background so you know how and why I'm telling you these things. I was one of those kids that could read and write before I even started school.
Wow, you could read and write before anyone else. You must truly be gifted.
I knew my 1 to 12 times table before other kids even knew how to open a book.
Uh-huh.
I won academic scholarships in 2 expensive private schools.
Wow, I'm noting a lot of stuff about when you were a kid.
I did 6 years of science, which included medicine. I did 6 years of natural health and medicine.
Internet research. You're talking about internet research, aren't you? Else, I'm guessing the guy who was boasting about how he knew his 1 to 12 times tables before the other kids could open a book might just possibly be dropping the name of his prestigious university where he got his qualifications. He's a lifeguard instructor.
And I spent 3 years solely looking into the nature of viruses, bacteria, protozoans, fungus, and parasites.
Yes, and we will shortly find out that even after 3 years of doing that, you don't even have the slightest, remotest clue of what a virus is. I mean, we're talking about the levels here of someone claiming they've done 3 years of research on cars and are now claiming that cars are actually small communal hexapodal insects that produce honey.
I knew my 1 to 12 times table before other kids even knew how to open a book.
Yeah, spoilers, you go and take a look at his bio. His qualifications are diving instructor. Yeah, you might be just as well off getting your pandemic advice from the magic 8 ball on this one. You know, rather than this guy.
The same. And when I did my last IQ and aptitude test, I was taken into a separate room and I was interrogated to see if I cheated.
And what? They found out you were cheating? You know, because you were such a genius that you'd spent 3 years researching what a virus is.
So what is a virus anyway? Well, a virus is nothing more than a solvent.
Oh, you absolute peon. You uneducated munchkin. Seriously, this video went viral, then got removed from YouTube. Not entirely sure why, but probably something to do with him recommending that people break quarantine,
Pull your finger out, get outside, do normal things.
in the middle of a pandemic and go about their lives as normal. But spoiler, Tom, viruses aren't solvents. Solvents are stuff that dissolve things, you know, water, pentane, dichloromethane, acetone. Hell, almost any liquid can be a solvent. Viruses are little capsules of proteins and lipids that contain viral RNA.
And these solvents are created within the cells of the body. This is why you cannot catch a virus. Viruses are created cellularly.
But you knew that, right, Tom? No. Viruses contain heavy metals and plastics and environmental industrial pollutants, whatever the hell they are.
And for the most part, what needs cleaning out of the cells are environmental toxins such as heavy metals, plastics, any kind of environmental industrial pollutants.
But if you think he's done with the stupidity, not even close. He then goes on to claim that you can't actually catch a virus, but the only way you can catch a virus is by getting a vaccine.
So I guess it's time to tell you the only way that you can actually catch a virus. So what happens with that incubated virus is it's sterilized and put into a vaccine. Now straight away you don't want that because that's bad news. Then when it's added to 70 or 80 chemicals, you definitely don't want that in your body.
A claim so dumb it's like claiming that your phone will only ever be fully charged when the battery is completely flat. I'm just sitting there scratching my head. How are you possibly this ignorant? So what you think that the 500 million or so people who were killed by smallpox in the last 100 years of its existence were due to people getting vaccines? And are all those people who were given the vaccines which finally eradicated smallpox, what, you think that they're the only people who ever got the virus? I mean, smallpox, just so you know, was so horrific that if you got it, you had about a 25% chance of dying. And even if you survived, you would normally have disfiguring scarring. The virus had been around for thousands of years before people even thought about injecting vaccines into people. Yet, in his 6 years of expert researching of viruses, nope, his conclusion, the only way you can catch a virus is by getting a vaccine. Leading to some of the most utterly facepalm moments ever.
You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Most people have no idea about how the world works, certainly don't have any idea about how the mind and body works.
I mean, we're talking about how can you be so astronomically self-unaware? He's also got a channel where he's a full anti-vaxxer, and he has videos of him eating raw chicken to show that it's safe. Wow, here's a guy proving that Russian roulette is a safe game to play.
What's the secret to good comedy? Timing.
You muppet. It's utterly staggering that anyone could take this guy who is so completely incoherent and demonstrably wrong on so much seriously. Well, actually, I don't know. Having seen what's been going on in the wide world for the past few years, people have always had this level of crazy. I mean, remember, about a third of Americans think that Jesus is coming back in their lifetimes. Should it really surprise anyone that people substitute one utterly baseless set of beliefs that they feel are correct for another completely baseless set of ideas that they just believe in, that they believe that they're true? Well, newsflash. Viruses basically run on physical chemistry. They don't care about your alternative facts. Now, whilst I could spend over an hour just breaking down this one video, because this guy says so much that is so wrong, it appears that comments like mine were kind of getting to the guy who re-uploaded this video. For all you people who don't believe him, and look, this real doctor is saying exactly the same thing, and that's got over 500,000 hits. Let's take a look at that, shall we?
And the cells get poisoned. They try to purify themselves by excreting debris, which we call viruses. In 1918, late fall of 1917, there was the introduction of radio waves around the world. Whenever you expose any biological system to a new electromagnetic field, you poison it, you kill some, and the rest go into a kind of suspended animation.
Yeah, he's pretty much diverging from reality at this point. Viruses have been with us for a long time before there was any artificial radio waves of any sort. They affect all forms of life, from bacteria to potatoes to people.
And then starts in World War II with the next pandemic, with the introduction of radar equipment all over the Earth, blanketing the entire Earth in radar fields.
Which is an awesome suggestion, apart from the minor, slight, niggling problem that there wasn't a pandemic at the end of World War II. It's kind of like saying that getting in a car gives you cancer, because we all know that everyone who got in the car got cancer, right? That's a completely coherent scientific hypothesis, because it's not demonstrably wrong already. That's how stupid what this guy is proposing is.
In 1968, there was the Hong Kong flu, and it was the first time the Earth has a protective layer in the Van Allen belt.
Yeah, now you're just taking the piss with the divergence from reality thing. You see, the Earth's got a magnetic field, and the Earth's had a magnetic field for quite some time. We know this because people have been using compasses for at least the last 2,000 years. And when you get high-energy particles from the sun interacting with that magnetic field, they get stuck in the magnetic bottle, which forms the Van Allen belts. They've been there since the Earth has had a magnetic field, like 4.5 billion years. They didn't come around in the bloody 60s.
Which essentially integrates the cosmic fields from the sun and the Earth, from the moon and Jupiter, etc.
All right, yeah, the cosmic fields. Makes perfect sense. I mean, what channel was this put up on again? All right, New Paradigm Astrology.
Integrates that and essentially distributes that to the living beings of the Earth. And we put satellites emitting radioactive frequencies in the Van Allen belt.
No, that's wrong on every conceivable level. The satellites have to be kept out of the Van Allen belts because of the high energy particles there end up destroying the electronics. Secondly, the satellites work on radio waves, not radioactive waves.
Satellites emitting radioactive frequencies in the Van Allen belt.
I mean, there's such a thing as radioactivity, you know, when an unstable nucleus decays. But that's got nothing to do with satellites.
Within 6 months, we had a new viral pandemic. Why viral? Because the people are poisoned, they excrete toxins, they look like viruses. People think it's a flu epidemic.
Yeah, except if that were true, every cell culture on Earth would have been emitting viruses, detoxifying, at exactly the same time. And they weren't. And also, what about all the other life on Earth that is somehow subjected to these harmful electromagnetic rays at the same time? Shouldn't they all be detoxifying at the same time? Shouldn't every single animal on Earth have become sick at the same time?
In the 1918 epidemic, the Boston Health Department decided to investigate the contagiousness of this. So they, believe it or not, took hundreds of people with the flu and they sucked the snot out of their nose and injected it into the healthy people who didn't have the flu, and not one time could they make the next person sick.
Yeah, I'm going to have to push X to doubt on that one. You know, there's this thing that doctors have called the Hippocratic Oath, where they promise not to do harm. I mean, intentionally trying to infect people with lethal, contagious diseases kind of conflicts with that just a tiny little bit. That being said, the origin of where we get vaccines from, this was kind of how it all started. One Edward Jenner deliberately infected an 8-year-old boy, one James Phillips, with cowpox, such that he could later prove that he was immune to smallpox. Yeah, these kind of throw ethics to the wall when it comes to human experimentation. Not quite so sure that was the way it was in the early years of the 20th century in Boston.
Investigate the contagiousness of this, so they, believe it or not, took hundreds of people with the flu and they sucked the snot out of their nose and injected it into the healthy people who didn't have the flu, and not one time could they make the next person sick.
Are you finished, Mr. Slade?
No, I'm just getting warmed up.
You got that right. I barely scratched the surface with any of these guys. You know, mister, I've done 6 years of research on viruses. Oh, God, that guy. My heart's full of joy because of the coronavirus. Now, if you please, just for the sake of my sanity, for having to ever watch this guy get his rocks off and believing that the only way his God can communicate is by lots of people dying. No, just give me a thumbs up for having had to have watched his whole video. Or, you know, Now, really, the medics in Boston were trying to infect people with a lethal infectious disease in the middle of a pandemic. Or, you know, 5G is dangerous because I'm a world expert on it. Oh, and by the way, 5G is almost completely harmless. The frequency this thing runs at, the only thing it can possibly do to your body is a very slight heating levels that basically, unless you stuck your head right next to the mast, are operationally insignificant. So you let me know who you think the next video should be on. Comment with the most thumbs up below gets the next video. Now naturally, all of these videos are going to get demonetized the second they're uploaded. Such is life. So if you want to support this little venture of at least trying to roll back some of the levels of crazy in the world, just a little. Patreon links below.